No, they're on.
They're all down here.
They're on each desk, and they'll be talking a little bit, and they're looking for the witness.
All right, court is going to call 2019 CR 4004B, State of Texas versus SANTUAN Wilson. Could I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Lindsay Shaw for the state.
Daniel Escobar for the state.
Defense?
Scott for the defendant.
All right, and are you Mr. Wilson?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the court is in receipt of a jury waiver. Mr. Wilson, did you have a chance to review that document with your attorney, and did you understand it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do you understand you have a right to a jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in the right to remain silent?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that we were in the middle of jury selection? Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you knowingly and voluntarily requesting that the court hear the evidence in this case and make a decision on whether you're guilty or not guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and did you sign the document entitled jury right waiver requesting a trial before the court?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, defense, have you had an ample time to confer with your client on entering into a request for a bench trial as opposed to a jury trial?
Yes, I have, Judge. And and I signed off on it too, Judge.
All right, and state, do you have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then state, before opening statements, would you please read into the record the indictment?
Yes, ma'am. And actually, before I do that, Judge, I did want to make an oral motion in limine. Wish I could have done that beforehand.
Yes.
I would ask that defense counsel refrain from questioning my complaining witness, Brianna Younger, about any prior bad acts, prior arrests. She does not have any felony convictions. And so I think questioning her about any prior bad acts is not relevant and just should not be done by defense counsel.
So with regards to objections, it's different when you're trying it before the court. I can tell both sides that if it's something that the court should disregard, mentally, I will be able to disregard it. I have no idea what the witnesses are going to say, so I don't know if what he's questioning the witness about will be relevant or not. So we'll approach that if it comes up. And Mr. Cox, you know the rules of evidence?
Sure.
Okay. All right, state, could you read the indictment, please?
See that microphone right in it? Yes, bring it towards you and make sure it's green.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Down. Better. Better.
All right.
In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized, impaneled, and sworn as such at the March term AD 2019 of the 437th Judicial District Court of said county, in said court, at said term, do present in and to said court, that in the county and state aforesaid and interior to the presentment of this indictment, on or about the 25th day of June.
Sorry. Okay. Like I say.
On or about the 23rd day of June 2018, SANTUAN Wilson, hereinafter referred to as defendant, while in the course of committing theft of property and with intent to obtain and maintain control of said property, did intentionally and knowingly threaten, and placed Brianna Younger in fear of imminent bodily injury and death, and the defendant did use and exhibit a deadly weapon, to wit, a firearm, against the peace and dignity of the state.
To that, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Not guilty.
All right. State, do you have any opening statements?
Yes, ma'am, briefly. Judge, you're going to hear testimony from 3 officers and our victim, Brianna Younger. They will all tell you, and Brianna Younger will tell you the story of how on June 23rd, 2018, SANTUAN Keontae Wilson, Derek Alexander, and a third unknown male came to her house in Bexar County on the west side around 8 p.m., a little after 8 p.m. They entered the front door. They didn't knock. The front door was unlocked, and they made their way inside. Mr. Wilson was first, followed by Mr. Alexander and the third unknown male. When they came inside, Brianna will tell you that she immediately saw that Mr. Wilson had a firearm in his waistband. She recalls that it was black in color. She will also tell you that Derek Alexander had a firearm, and that this was all happening inside of her house with her 2 children, who at the time were 5 years old and 2 years old, her 2 sons. They entered and they demanded that they inferred to her and told her that they were not going to be leaving without something. And they made their way into her bedroom, where Mr. Wilson was the person who took approximately $300 cash from Brianna's wallet, or from her purse. At this time, both Mr. Wilson and Mr. Alexander made threats to Miss Younger, and Miss Younger was in fear for her life and as well as for her 2 children's lives. After the 3 individuals left her house, she proceeded to call her children's father, and before she then called 911. Detectives or officers came on scene and conducted an investigation, and it was later turned over to Night CID, and a follow-up detective was assigned. Sometime later, about a month later, Brianna Younger, did take part in photo lineups and was able to positively identify both SANTUAN Keontae Wilson and Derek Alexander. And she did tell this to both Detective Guerra and to Detective Seaton, that these were the individuals who were in her house. So after you hear all of this testimony, Judge, the state feels that we will no doubt have proved to you beyond a reasonable doubt that SANTUAN Keontae Alexander is guilty of aggravated robbery.
Defense.
We'll reserve opening statement.
All right, thank you. State, call your first witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Detective Carry on to the stand.
And we ask that the rule be invoked, Judge.
The rule will be invoked. Good afternoon. If you can raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can have a seat. If you will state your name for the record and spell it, please.
My name is Justin Carrion, Justin. Last name is spelled Carrion.
All right, state.
Detective Carry on, who you currently work for?
So I work for the San Antonio Police Department.
How long have you worked for SAPD?
I'm 9.5 years, almost 10.
What unit are you currently assigned to?
So currently I'm a detective in the Special Victims Unit.
Okay, and back in June of 2018, what unit were you assigned to?
At that point, I would have been on patrol, more specifically East Patrol.
Okay, and so what area does that cover, East Patrol?
General east side of San Antonio, goes up portions of 35, stays east of 35, parts of I-10 going east, all the way down 37, staying east of 37, and some of it goes along Bear County, or the edge of the city limit lines there.
And on June 23rd of 2018, were you working?
Yes,
And what shift did you have back in June 23rd of 2018?
so that shift was called T shift.
And what's that mean?
They give letter designations. I don't know why they picked T for it. But the hours for that specific shift, the T designates the hours 5:30 PM to 3 AM.
And on June 23rd, 2018, were you driving a marked SAPD vehicle?
Yes, I would have been.
Were you with anyone else at the time?
So that day I was with Officer Jordan Hammond.
Okay. And why were you paired with Officer Jordan Hammond?
He was currently in the FTO program, Field Training Officer Program. He was a trainee and I was assigned what it looks like is a portion of that day to train him.
And did you respond to a call that night?
Yes.
And do you remember where you responded to?
Don't know the exact numbers, but it was on Shelburne.
Okay. And do you not remember?
I don't remember the exact numbers.
Okay. And is there anything that would refresh your recollection?
The incident detail report would have all that information.
And Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Thanks. If you could take a moment, refresh your memory, and then once you're done, just answer the question. Yeah.
Okay, so it would be 399 Shelburne Drive.
Okay. And what part of town is that on?
So that would be on the east side of San Antonio.
And is that in Bear County?
Yes.
What time did you and Officer Hammond arrive at that location?
So we would have arrived 2046 hours. That'd be about 8:46.
And when you arrived at the location, what type of building was it?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What type of building was it?
It would have been a residence, a single family home.
Who was there when you responded to that location?
The complainant was there. Brianna Younger.
And who else was there?
She did have children with her, an Achilles Gaskin and Adonis Younger.
How old were the children? Do you recall?
They were looks like infant toddler age, and then approximately 5 years old for the older one.
And when you got to that location, what did you do as a part of your investigation?
So get to that location, we obviously made contact with the complainant. Then at that point is gathering information to determine what happened.
Was there anyone else at the location besides those three people?
It would have been more officers there.
And did you arrest anyone that was found at that location?
No, we did not make an arrest that night.
Okay. How long approximately did you stay at that location?
Let me look at when it says we've left. So it has us completing the call approximately 2 hours later. Though that won't be absolute time of when we left.
Sorry.
I said that would not be an absolute time of when we left that residence, but approximately 2 hours later is when we finalized that call.
And when you were at the location, were you equipped with a body worn camera?
Yes,
Okay. And well, first, are you trained in using the body worn camera?
yes, I am.
Okay. And Your Honor, if I may approach.
Yes.
Your purpose is for him to his election.
It is entered in as a true and accurate report of the side being given.
Make it proper and then
No, it's not gonna be through him that we play. It's gonna be through someone else. Okay.
Yes.
Secretary, I'm showing you what's gonna be marked as State Exhibit number 1. You recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
That is a disc with my body worn camera.
Okay, and have you had an opportunity to view the video?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and is it a true and accurate depiction of what happened that night?
Yes, it is.
And aside from being muted for legal reasons, has it been altered or amended in any way?
Not that I could tell.
Your Honor, state would offer State Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objections?
My objection is in terms of why the purpose for the body. I mean, if it's a situation, Judge, if it's fresh recollection and you want, that's one thing. But if they just wanted the whole thing in, then my objection is that if it's presented to kind of support the officer's testimony, and I don't think it can get him for that reason.
All right, State, what's the relevance of State's Exhibit number 1?
Your Honor, he walks into the home, he's there, he shows how the layout of the home, he shows where everything was positioned. It's him being shown where the crime actually happened. It depicts all of that.
All right, so defense's objection will be overruled. State's Exhibit number 1 is admitted.
Now, Detective Carry on. Have you had any training in regards to being a UEDI? A UEDI.
Yes, I have.
Okay, and when did you receive this training?
That would have been in early 2021.
Okay. So right now, based off your training experience, and how long were you UEDI?
So I was a UDI for almost a year. I believe it was about 10 months.
Okay. And so on June 23rd of 2018, was anyone called out to the scene to process the crime scene for any evidence?
From what I can remember, we did request a CSI crime scene investigator out there. So yes.
Did they make it out there?
Let me, if you don't mind, I want to refer to this, see if they actually made it on scene. It looks like CSI did actually make it out to the scene.
And did they process the scene for evidence?
As far as I can remember, they did not. As far as I can remember, they did not process.
And why did they not process the scene?
I would object, Judge, if he's going to tell us why someone else didn't do anything, it causes speculation that he has specific knowledge. And that knowledge is not hearsay.
Right. Is this something that someone told you for the reason it wasn't completed?
No. It would be more my knowledge of that job. Of doing that particular task.
All right, re-ask your question.
So, and can I ask, can the court reporter read back my last question?
Why did they not process the scene?
So the scene was not processed due to the fact that after we had called the detective, they had determined to go with
Objection. We still have the same problem about what somebody else determined. The officer can testify to what he did, what he didn't do, or why he didn't do it, but he cannot testify as to why somebody else did something.
If you are going to be testifying
Yes.
to what someone said, that's going to be sustained. So if someone told you the reason why the scene wasn't processed, that's going to be sustained.
I was not gonna say that anyone told us not to process it, but more so the reason why it wasn't processed.
But what was that based, what is that? You're saying, I'm assuming he's saying that the scene was not processed. What is your basis for saying the scene was not processed?
The level of offense that was determined as far as a burglary and the fact that it lacked, the scene itself lacked the evidence to clearly indicate that a burglary took place.
Did you make the determination for why it would not be processed, or did someone else make that determination?
Someone else would have made that determination.
All right, the defense's objection is sustained.
So based off of your training and experiences in EDI, generally, why would a scene not be processed?
For the most part, it would be the lack of evidence, the lack of physical evidence itself.
And what determines whether or not there's this lack of physical evidence?
Typically, it's the officers that are out there on the scene. They would search the scene for any physical evidence, and most of the time that's visual evidence. That gets relayed further, and then a determination gets made if a evidence detective is going to come out or a CSI will come out.
Now, generally, using your training and experience as a detective, once officers have left a scene, what can happen to a case, generally?
When officers leave the scene, the case would then it gets generated in a report by the officer, the handling officer, and it gets sent over to the appropriate investigative unit.
Okay. And based off your training and experience, can a charge change from the time of when you guys make the scene to when it's handled by a detective?
Yes, it can.
Pass the witness.
Right, defense.
Okay, now the text, you said that you arrived at the scene about, you said about 8:45 in the PM?
Correct.
Okay, and that was on June 20th, right?
It would have been June 23rd.
Or June 23rd. And you testified you didn't know specifically when you left, how long you stayed at the scene, or do you know how long you were there?
I don't know the specifics of it in accordance to when the particular time that we left that location.
Okay. Now, when you arrived, you indicated that there were several witnesses, the major complainant and two minor children, correct?
Correct.
Okay, when you arrived, were you the first police unit on the scene?
I'll have to refer to the incident detail report. Give me a minute.
Okay, but before you look at the report, I just need to know, do you recall whether you were the first unit on the scene?
I don't remember if we were the first unit.
Okay. Now, if you need your report to help refresh your recollection, go ahead.
It looks like we were the first unit there by a matter of seconds, really.
Okay. All right. So you're on the scene. In your recollection is that you get there, then other units follow. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall where you were in the city when you got the call?
I do not.
Okay. Do you recall how long it took you to get, once you received the call, how long did it take for you to get to the location?
I don't recall off the top of my memory. I know it will be in the incident detail report.
Okay.
So approximately 2 minutes from the time of assign to the time we arrived.
So you're saying you're approximately 2 minutes away?
Correct.
Okay. When you indicated that the location that you're going to was a house, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You get to the house, do you recall whether you actually go up to the door, knock, to go in, or did the complaint or the witnesses come out, or did you meet them out in the yard? Do you remember?
From what I can remember, we went to the door.
Okay, you went to the door, and do you recall whether you immediately went inside or whether you did anybody come outside to greet you or to meet you?
From what I can remember, we actually started talking inside the house.
Okay. So by the time that you went inside the house, you said that there was another officer with you, Officer Hammond?
That's correct.
Okay. And your unit, were you just a regular uniform unit, or were you some type of specialized unit working?
So we're just regular uniform patrol unit.
Okay. And on that particular day, you were a field training officer?
Yes, I was.
So when you enter the house or when you get to the front door, are there other units that are on the scene at that?
Would that be in reference to like other officers or separate
Other officers?
other officers? So I don't remember seeing them immediately in front of us. But they would have been arriving behind us, essentially. They would have been walking behind us up there. We were walking.
So you indicated you responded to the door, front door, and I think your testimony was that you entered the residence.
Yes,
By the time you entered the residence, were there any other officers on the scene? Were there any other officers on the scene by the time you initially entered the complainant's house, her residence?
so there would have been other officers on the scene.
Okay. Do you recall how many other officers?
Not off the top of my head, but I know it will be in this incident detail report.
Okay. Now, once you see you arrive at the scene, first at the front door, at that point, do you consider yourself the lead officer at that point, or is someone else taking the lead in terms of the investigation?
So normally with us, it is determined based on who is originally assigned the report responsibility. I believe it would be in here, but normally as the field training officer, you tend to take that responsibility, obviously, for the training experience for the officer, the trainee.
Okay, so is it fair to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, did you become the person that was responsible for doing the report in this case?
That is correct.
Okay, so in terms of that responsibility, that means that you would, if there were assignments that you, or requests that you needed to make of other officers to do certain jobs, you were the ones that were, you were the person that was in control of the scene, correct?
That would be correct.
Telling other officers what to do or anything that you needed.
Yes, well, and I'll clarify too, technically, it would be Officer Hammond, but I would essentially be by his side as a partner and the trainer. So in theory, it falls under him, but me being the more senior officer between the two of us, I would be ultimately in control.
Okay, so basically, although you're kind of the lead, technically you have Hammond as a person because you're training him, correct?
That is correct.
You want him to get the experience, correct?
Correct.
And you're either correcting or suggesting things to him as you're going along.
That is correct.
Okay. So, do you recall whether, now you may mention that that there was CID that was called out, or crime scene investigation or something like that?
Crime scene investigator, yes.
Okay,
CSI.
I'm sorry, CSI. I said CID. CSI. All right. So, were you the one that would have called CSI out?
So I can't say for a fact that it was me or it was Hammond. In a general sense, just by my experience, it's anyone on the scene really that hears enough to determine, hey, this is a particular crime that we would have a CSI come out to.
Okay. So, so between you and Hammond, basically, you would have either called or had directed, if Hammond didn't do it himself, you would have directed Hammond to call, correct?
That'd be correct. And then with the addition, that if anyone else didn't call them, either any of the other officers out there on the scene didn't call, we would be the ones to make sure that they come out as well.
And do you recall what time crime scene investigators, what time did they get out to us?
So they would have made it out at about, looks like the first one was out there about 9:06. And the second one, 9:13.
Okay. Do you recall who those officers or those investigators were?
So they would be, these particular ones were civilian. They still do the same CSI type job. They're just not sworn police personnel. Megan Duffy and Melissa Hurst.
You spell the last name of the first person.
Yes, Duffy spelled Duffy.
And when they arrived on the scene, do you recall whether you gave them any particular instructions to look at or to go to, anything like that?
That I don't remember.
Now, do you recall what time the CSI, what time did they leave the scene?
So I don't have the exact time that they left the scene, but the time that they were removed from that call would be for Megan Duffy, it would be 9:43. And then for Melissa Hurst, it would be 9:19.
Do you recall whether before they would leave the scene on any particular day when they left the scene, did they have to clear it with you, or do they check in to ask you whether you need anything else, or do they just kind of disappear?
I don't remember exactly how this one played out, but I can say how it normally, a typical, that typical interaction would go. They would normally check with the reporting officer, which would have been myself and Officer Hammond. So they would just check with us to determine if there was anything else that was needed, or in some cases, if they are even needed out there.
So you don't recall specifically your conversations, if you had one with them prior to them leaving?
Yeah, I don't remember this.
Now, by being the lead officer on the case, your involvement, did your involvement in this case extend longer than the initial evening when you were called out? And let me rephrase that, you know, because I want to know, did you maintain being the lead on this case, or is that case referred to a detective? Is a detective assigned?
Yeah, so that case would be referred to detective. And normally for something like this, and given the hours, it gets referred to our night detectives. They're typically called night CID. And then from there, it gets assigned to the appropriate unit.
Do you on the scene, you were basically in charge that day. Once this goes over to detective, does that detective supersede your authority, or do you maintain being the lead person on the case?
So the detective does, in theory, supersede our authority in the sense of they get, being that they're specialized and trained for certain things, they get the say of what goes on. While it's not necessarily an absolute determination, it is a common practice for us to go with what that detective is saying.
Now, after that date that you were out, I think you said June 23rd, 2018. Do you recall whether the lead detective on this case ever made any contact with you to get you or either Officer Hammond to do anything additional other than what you did that night on the 23rd?
So to the best of my recollection, we were not asked to do anything beyond what was done.
Good night.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the report that was shown to you, officer, was that your report, or was that Hammond's report? Who would be the author of that report?
So well, right now I just have what's called the incident detail report. It's the call log, but the offense report is Officer Hammond's report.
Hammond's.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pass with us.
Right, state.
Nothing further from state, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excused.
Excuse. We'll subject to recall if we need them to.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of defense. Please make sure you're available if anyone needs to recall you.
Yes,
All right, thank you.
Can I see the names of the children? You spoke the names, the first names you were saying,
yes.
Adonis and
Adonis, and you want me to spell Adonis?
yes.
Adonis. Do you need the last name then? as
Oh,
well?
yes, please.
Well, Adonis is younger.
Okay, got it.
And then the other child we have is Achilles, Achilles, with the last name of Gaskin, Gaskin.
Thank you.
All right, state, call your next witness.
State calls Brianna Younger.
BRIANA.
BREANNA, I believe.
Ready?
I'll get her, I'll make sure.
Okay,
to
it's just
get it.
easier when I get it before that.
All right, if you raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand if you'll state your name for the record, please, and spell it.
Brianna Younger, BREANNA, last name Younger, YOUNGER.
All right, state.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Younger. Is it okay if I call you Brianna?
Yes.
Okay. Brianna, are you, before we get into a day, I'm going to ask you specifically about June 23rd of 2018. Can you just tell the judge a little bit about yourself? Where are you from?
I'm from San Antonio, born and raised,
And how old are you?
25.
Okay. And are you currently employed?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. What do you do with in your time?
I have 4 children. I have 2 boys and 2 girls.
And what are their ages?
9, 7, 2, and 1.
Okay, so let's start with the 9. Will you say their names with their ages?
Okay, Achilles Gaskin, he's 9. Adonis Younger, he's 7. Kennedy Bagley, she's 2. And Corinne Bagley, she's 1.
Okay. And so if we go, let's talk about June 23rd of 2018. You were living in San Antonio at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you recall where you lived?
Yes, I lived at 399 Shelburne Drive, San Antonio, Texas, 78220.
That's in Bexar County?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And did you own the home or were you renting?
I was just renting
Right. And what part of town was that house?
the east side of San Antonio.
Okay. And did you have to call the police on the night of June 23rd?
Yes, I did.
And what time did you call the police?
Around 8 p.m.
Okay. And what happened that night? Why is it that you called the police?
I had people that I did not invite come into my home.
Okay. And when I'm going to ask you about those people, but before we get into that, what were you doing that evening and who was in your house?
Feeding my sons, my 2 boys, Achilles and Adonis, on the couch.
So at the time, did you just have the 2 sons?
Yes,
Okay. And do you remember what y'all were having for dinner?
pizza.
Okay. And then you said that people came into your house.
Yes,
Okay. How did they come into your house?
through the front door.
Was the front door unlocked?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Was this a normal thing for you? Did you typically leave your front door unlocked?
Yes, for the most part. Yes.
Why?
It was just kind of out of habit.
Do you still do that?
No,
So when these people came into your house, do you remember around what time it was?
I don't remember the exact time.
Okay. Was if you were eating dinner, was it nighttime?
Yes,
Do you recall, was it dark or getting dark?
the sun was setting.
Okay. And before these people came in the house, did they knock?
No,
Did they ring a doorbell?
no.
And so when they came in, did you see them?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you see first?
I saw Keontae, then Derek, and another male that I don't know.
Okay. So if we start with Keontae, did you know Keontae?
Yes,
Okay. And how did you know him?
he's my cousin.
Okay. And do you know his full name?
Yes.
And what is that?
SANTUAN Keontae Wilson.
And so on that night, on June 23rd of 2018, had you had interactions with Mr. Wilson before?
Yes, but few.
Okay. But you had spoken to him before?
Yes,
Okay. And was he also aware that y'all were related?
yes.
Okay. And how are you cousins through what is the relationship?
Our mothers are sisters.
And so after Keontae came in, who was the next individual?
Derek.
Okay. And going back, we're calling him Keontae or Mr. Wilson, but so you said that his first name was SANTUAN?
Yes,
Did you know him more by SANTUAN or you knew him more by his middle name?
more by his middle name.
And so then after Mr. Wilson or Keontae came in, after him was Derek Alexander?
Yes,
Okay. And did you know Derek Alexander prior to that evening?
yes.
Okay, how'd you know him?
He dated a close friend of mine, and he was also the best friend of an ex that passed away.
How long would you say you had known Mr. Alexander?
I'd say probably like a couple of years.
And did you know Mr. Alexander and Mr. Wilson to be friends or to be acquaintances?
No, not before that.
Okay. And after Mr. Alexander came in the house, you said there was a third person.
Yes,
And was this also a male
yes.
since that night?
Not that I can recall.
And did you ever at a later date learn who that person was?
No.
And so once the three came into your house, what'd you do?
I asked them what they were doing there.
And when they came in, did you notice anything immediately upon their entry into your house?
Not immediately. They were walking towards the back of the house, towards my bedroom.
Do you recall what they were wearing?
I can't remember.
Do you recall seeing anything that alarmed you?
Yes,
And what'd you see?
two handguns,
Okay, who had the handguns?
Derek and Keontae.
And where were the handguns?
Keontae's was in his waistline, and I don't recall where Derek's was just until he pulled it out.
And had you, before June 23rd, 2018, seen handguns before?
Yes,
So would you say you would be able to identify if you saw a handgun in a waistband?
yes.
Do you remember what color the handgun was that Keontae had?
Black,
And what about the handgun that Derek had?
silver with black.
And when they came in and you saw these firearms, these handguns, were your children still in the room?
Yes,
Did they see these gentlemen come into the house?
yes,
And so they would have seen the firearms as well?
yes.
And did any of them, did Derek or Keontae pull out the firearm or display the firearm towards you?
Derek,
And what did he do?
he kind of waved it around and said that he didn't want to have to use it.
And did Keontae say anything?
After I moved out of the way, he said that my children's father, Anthony, took some guys to my aunt's house for his brother, and that he was disrespecting, and that's just the streets. That's what happens.
Okay. Before that night, had you yourself had any sort of, before June 23rd, you testified previously that you had only met or seen Keontae a few times before that night.
Right.
Okay. So you had never had any problems with him.
No.
And were you surprised to see him come into your house?
Yes.
Had he ever been to your house before?
Not that I can recall.
So you would say then that it wasn't normal for him to enter your house.
No.
It wasn't normal for him to just let himself in.
No.
And so once Derek displayed the gun, what happened after that?
I moved out of the way.
Okay, and so when you moved out of the way, where were you?
I'm still in my bedroom.
Okay, so if we. I want to show you a couple of photos and also a video. Did you want to ask for permission? Judge, at this time, the state would ask to publish State's Exhibit 1.
Defense?
No objections other than the initial objection that I made.
All right, State's Exhibit number 1 is admitted and state you may publish.
Thank you, Judge. Oh, sorry. So Brianna, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit to 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So if we're looking at this video here, is this your house that the officers are walking up to?
Yes.
Okay. And we can see that they knock on the door?
Mhm.
Or how are you able to see them? Is there a window or what's your front door like?
It's just a peephole.
And so after you saw that it was the police officers, you let them in.
Yes.
Had you locked your front door at that point?
Yes.
And so now, as the video plays, we can see, is that the front door?
Yes.
And what room are we looking at here?
The living room.
And is this you that we can see on the screen?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. And is this right after the officers, and we saw that, but this is right after the officers arrived, is that right?
Yes.
And I want to ask you more about what you did after Keontae and Derek displayed their firearms. But for now, if I'm going to fast forward again to, I'm going to go towards the end at 36 minutes. And begin playing. And so here we can see the officer is walking. Is this towards the kitchen area?
Yes.
And then if I pause and we look, we can see a hallway, right?
Yes.
And so what if we were to go down that hallway, what is at the end of the hall?
My son's room is straight ahead and my room is on the right of that.
So if I play the video again and I pause at 37 minutes for the record. This room here that I'm circling, which room is this?
That's my son's room.
Did your sons share a room?
Yes, they did.
And then this room here to the right that I'm circling, is this your bedroom?
Yes, that's my bedroom.
And this person we see here, that's you, right?
Yes, it's me.
Okay. So going back to once 3 men entered your house, once they were inside of the house in the living room, what happened after that?
They walked towards the hallway in my bedroom.
Okay. Did they ask if they could go back there?
No.
Did they act as let me ask you a different question. Where were you when they went back there?
I was still standing in the living room, but I followed them back there
Why'd you follow them back there?
because they weren't invited.
What was happening with the guns at that point?
They were not out yet until I started making a ruckus,
Okay,
you
and
know,
how were you doing that?
telling them to leave. And I had said that I had called the police, even though I had not yet, but I was making a ruckus, and that's when Derek pulled out the handgun and said that he didn't want to have to use it. So I moved aside.
And you moved aside, and what happened when you moved aside?
They started going through the closets,
And who's they?
Keontae and Derek,
Okay, and where was the third man?
standing like right in the hallway where you see, he
Okay.
didn't really move much.
Okay, but Keontae and Derek were inside of your bedroom.
Yes.
And at this point, how were you feeling?
Scared for my sons and I.
Okay, why were you scared?
Firearms, they always have made me nervous, and just the fact that my boys were there with me while that was going on.
Did you feel at that point that your life was potentially in
Objection
danger?
leading,
Sustained.
I'm sorry.
I'll ask you a new question. When they went into your bedroom, did they take anything?
Yes,
What did they take?
money,
And who took it?
Keontae,
And where did he find the money?
in my purse. My closet door was open.
Do you recall how much money he took?
About $300.
How do you know it was $300?
I just worked the night before that.
What, at that time, what was your job?
I worked in adult entertainment. I was a dancer
Okay.
at MGM Cabaret.
Did you ever give Keontae permission to take the money?
No, ma'am.
Did Derek take anything else?
No.
And this Keontae that we've been speaking about, do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please point to him and identify an article of clothing?
He has a white shirt.
May the record reflect, Your Honor, that the witness has identified the defendant. And Brianna, after Keontae took the money, did he say anything else to you?
No, they left after that.
Did he make any other threats to you while he was at your house?
No.
And after they left your house, did you immediately call the police?
No, I called Anthony Bagley, my kid's father, and I called my aunt.
And why did you call Anthony and your aunt before you called the police?
Just so I could get an understanding of what was going on, and I couldn't get a hold to either one of them, and I was just not gonna accept the fact that they came in with guns while my kids were in the home.
And after the fact, were your kids, could you tell that your kids were frightened?
Of course, I started experiencing a lot of problems with my son. He was fully potty trained, and he started back wetting the bed after that.
And after you called the police, do you recall, or from the time that the three men left your house until police arrived, do you recall about how much time passed?
I believe about 15 minutes, maybe. They got there pretty quick.
And after they got there, what happened? What did they do?
They asked me if I could, if I knew their names and ages, if I could detail the car and what type of weapons that they had. They just really briefed me, gave me my case number instructed me to just keep my doors locked and call back if anything else happened.
And going back to when the men left the house, when they left, did they go on foot? Did they get in a car? What happened?
They got in a car with another person sitting inside of the car that never got out. They got in a sedan. I can't remember the color, but it was a 4-door sedan, and they left after that.
So was that other person in the driver's seat?
Yes,
And do you remember when Keontae left, where he got in the car?
I can't remember.
Okay. And so by the time the police arrived, had you seen the car again?
No,
Was there any sign of Keontae in the neighborhood?
no,
Was there any sign of Derek or the other individual in the neighborhood?
no.
And once police arrived, did you give them the names of Keontae and Derek?
Yes, I pulled up their Facebooks and I was able to show the officers the Facebooks.
And do you remember if they had any officers come and take any pictures or anything like that?
I can't remember.
And after the police officers left that night, you had further contact with another detective, is that right?
Yes, I did.
And so do you remember the first time you would have spoken to a follow-up detective?
I can't remember the exact date.
Was it a few days later?
A couple of days, maybe a week. Can't remember the exact time frame from the incident.
And eventually, did you, after talking to this detective, did you go to a police station?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose of you going to the police station?
Making a statement.
And did you do anything else besides make a statement?
I received a photo lineup.
Do you remember who gave you the photo lineup?
A male detective, but I can't remember the name.
Okay, that's okay. And so when you did the photo lineup, do you remember if you were shown, were you shown a group of photos?
Yes, I was shown a group of photos.
And when you were shown these photos, did you receive instruction before these photos were shown to you?
No,
Did they explain to you how the process worked?
yes, it did explain how the process worked.
And when they showed you the pictures, did this detective suggest to you any individual in any of the given pictures?
No,
And when he showed you the pictures, did you have plenty of time to look at each of the photos?
yes, I did.
And were you able to pick out or identify one of the people in the photo lineup?
Yes,
And speaking of the photo lineup, in fact, did you actually do 2 photo lineups?
yes, I did.
And in each of the photo lineups, were you able to identify a person?
Yes, I was.
And Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you what I've marked as states exhibits number 2 and 3. Do you recognize these?
Yes, I do.
What are these?
My statement and my signature from the photo lineups.
And are these, if you page through,
Mhm.
if you would page through each one.
Okay.
Page through states exhibit 3.
Okay.
And if you would please page through states exhibit 3 as well. Are these the same photo lineups that you viewed after the offense?
Yes, they are.
And when we look at page 1, were you able to identify, and did you indicate to the detective that day that you were able to identify a suspect in each of the lineups?
Yes, I was.
And did you indicate that to the detective?
Yes, I did.
And if we look at State's Exhibit number 2, were you able to identify SANTUAN Wilson in that lineup?
Yes, I was.
And which number was he in this lineup?
He was 5A.
And if we look at,
5A.
Thank you. Go ahead. sir.
and if we then look at State's Exhibit number,
Alright. My objection at this point, the witness appears to be reading from something that's not in evidence.
You're not allowed to read from the document.
Okay.
so Brenna, if you just use it to refresh your memory.
Mhm.
If you look at State's Exhibit number 3, who were you able to identify in State's Exhibit number 23? Number
De-
3, I'm sorry.
Derek Alexander.
And do you recall which person he was that you identified?
Yes, I cannot remember the number, but I do remember signaturing which photo was of him.
And when you look at those pictures, were the photos of the individuals that of all African Americans?
Yes, they were.
Did they all have similar hair?
Yes.
Were they all of the same size and build?
Yes.
Was there anything unique or identifying about the person that you identified in each of the lineups compared to the other photos?
These are people I know, so it was easy to, recognize my cousin and a person that I had known prior to the incident.
So in any way, did the detective suggest someone that you should select?
No.
And after you gave your statement and after you did these lineups, did you have any other communication with police officers?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what was that communication about?
I can't remember. I was just following up with the advocate and the detective that was on the case as
Okay.
much as I could through email and phone calls.
Okay. And after Mr. Wilson, after Keontae and Derek and the other man came to your house that night, did you ever talk to Keontae again?
I talked to Keontae a few days after the incident through Facebook Messenger.
And when you talked to him, did you reach out to him or did he reach out to you?
He reached out to me.
And when he reached out to you, what did he say?
He asked me why I was protecting my kid's father, and did I know that they were his baby mother and my kid's father were sleeping with each other.
Did he ask you to do anything else?
No, I received letters from Derek, but not Keontae.
Did he ask you to drop charges?
Yes, he did.
And Brianna, you don't have any felony convictions, is that right?
No.
And is it true that you had a felony assault of a pregnant person case that was dismissed?
Yes, it was.
And do you know why it was dismissed?
The said person did not want to move forward with the prosecution.
And this said person, it was the alleged victim.
Yes,
And who was that?
my sister.
And you also have 2 pending misdemeanor charges, is that right?
Yes.
And what are those charges for?
For unlawful carry and violation of a protective order.
Okay. And is that protective order, Do you know what that arises from?
It's from the felony charge that was just dismissed.
And do you normally carry handguns?
No,
Have you had felt an urge to protect yourself since this happened to you?
well, I did move shortly after the incident. I was able to have my landlord let me out of my lease so that I could move from the house that the incident occurred at.
And why'd you feel the need to move?
I just didn't feel safe anymore. I couldn't sleep. It was hard for me to feel like I had control of my home at that point. So I needed to start over with my kids.
And did you, in this house that we're talking about, on Shelburne, did you have security cameras inside the house
No,
or outside the house?
no.
I'll pass the witness room.
Defense.
Shelburne.
SHELBURN.
a moment, Judge.
Yes. Mr. Cox, you need a moment to review that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so everyone, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. The rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense, and of course, your attorney.
Okay.
All right, so we'll take a 10-minute break. Let's say we'll be back here at 3:30. That's a little bit more than 10 minutes. Right?
couple of questions that were asked of the witness,
Mhm.
in discovery.
Okay,
There's, there was some information that the witness indicated that, there was some letters that were written.
between the witness and your
her
client.
and the
Garrett County.
code.
All right, where are the letters?
We don't have. Say doesn't, isn't in possession.
All right, you
Well,
want to
they-
ask,
They were in possession. Oh, yes,
They've
and they-
never been in possession with this.
No, I'm not talking about this case, but have those letters that were in the possession of the state.
Barbara, where now?
all right, let's do this so that I can know. Why don't you bring the witness up? If you want to question the witness about these letters, where these letters are, if they're in existence, did she turn them over to somebody? So that the court can have an idea and then you guys will have an idea as well. So let's bring her back in to find that. That's one.
The second thing, Judge, is that there was a mention of some type of communication in my client and the complaining witness through some type of Facebook application.
All right, do y'all have that Facebook application?
No, Judge.
Okay,
And it was a phone.
okay, it said some type of phone call. But my problem, Judge, is that when we were here last, there's a memo that I have. Brady memo. That it just said goes out to all defense attorneys. That it gives some type of detail about this conversation part.
Okay. All right, so this is from March 27th. So if you want to take the witness on,
Well, I don't know whether in my, and I wanted, at least for this part, but I heard being in here at this point, but we were last here on the 24th, on the 23rd, I believe, of March.
yes, March 23rd. That was for a jury trial.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And there was some type of information came up in my conversation with the prosecution with reference, Brady, not necessarily Brady in terms of discovery. This is marked 3/27, it's a couple of days after
Mhm.
we were here last.
Okay.
Yesterday, when we were made mention of talking about this case, one of my comments was there anything new from the last time we were here, which would have been the 24th.
Mhm.
My recollection is that it said there was nothing.
All right,
Yeah.
so Mr. Cox, with regards to that document that you have in your possession, are you requesting that the court disregards the question that was asked, or do you want to discover if there's this information in the state's possession?
Judge, if I may, so that was a memo that I wrote a few days after, because I had given Mr. Cox handwritten notes I had made. I gave him that afterward. Afterwards, I memorialized it in a little disclosure so that he had it. And to make sure that I put all the details, that if there was anything I missed or anything that I could recall, where I said I didn't put it in the notes, but it's covered by the note. That was uploaded to the system in March 27th.
Okay.
If I may, I'm sorry, but I think defense counsel, I think you're trying to say, if you're trying to say we misled you yesterday by not informing you that there was something new because this was uploaded from the last trial setting. We certainly
I'm
weren't
not-
trying to mislead you in that. It's
No,
just
I'm
that
not.
it-
No, I was just trying to get a dialogue of the time frame. Because
All right, so let's do this. All right, if you can have the witness step outside for a moment. So state. All right, we're going to take a break. So state before the witness gets back on the witness stand, Mr. Cox, when the witness comes on the witness stand, you can ask whatever question you want to ask to determine, of course, it's cross-examination, but you can ask whatever question you want to ask to see if there's some discovery issues. State, with regards to the witness's testimony about the Facebook, what I've read from the document that Mr. Cox has given me, the Facebook appears to be a phone call through Facebook with the defendant. Now, mind you, I'm just saying that because that's what's in the document that the state is handing me. Now, there appears to be, with regards to the alleged co-defendant, there's some letters being exchanged. So state, if you or your advocate can search through your file and search through synopsis to make sure that there isn't a letter, and the letter, I guess, should not be, I mean, maybe it's uploaded to synopsis because I would put copies of everything that was given to me in synopsis, but if you can look and see.
And Judge, just for clarity, so I did inform Mr. Cox, we had requested the co-defendant's file. That case had been handled about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I did request that from archives yesterday. The state has not received that file.
Okay, how long is it going to take to get that file from archives?
I've asked for an update. I haven't had a chance to comment on that file.
All right, so I'm going to give you a chance to go get an update on the files that are in archives. And if you could have someone, I don't know if they did it, I would put everything in synopsis. If you could perhaps look and see if there's anything in synopsis on that case related to these documents. And then we'll see if there's a letter somewhere that this witness exchanged or received from the co-defendant. And then if you all can see with this Facebook phone call, but Mr. Cox, with regards to phone calls on Facebook, I don't believe it's recorded per se, but the document that the state showed me that you've been given, it says that there was a phone conversation through Facebook with your client, not letters.
Right, but what happens, Judge, is that in this case is that the information that was given to me on the 23rd, and I have a copy of what they said.
Yes.
Didn't say anything about what was said. Didn't
Mhm.
say anything that my client told her to, he wanted for her to drop the charges, which I think is very important for me to know. And I have what was given to me. It's not, there's a reference made.
And Judge, again, the reason why I wrote that memo is because I was handwriting them.
Okay, all right, so this is what we're gonna do. Because we're not on the record at this point. You all can formulate your arguments, but let's see first if this information is in existence. If it's not, then Mr. Cox, you maybe want to make a different argument. If it is, you want to make a different argument. I always like for the record to be clear and for everybody to be concise on the record. So let's just see if this information is in existence. Let's find out with the co-defendant's file when it can be here, and we'll see where we are.
And Judge, I have an answer to that. I just
Yes.
called her. She just put it on my desk.
Okay.
So it's there.
It's
I told
on the
her,
way.
I told her to go run and get it.
All right, so let's step back. Let's do that, get all that information, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, you ready? All right, and State, could you have your witness come back, please? All right, so we're gonna recess until tomorrow. So you're gonna need to come back here to continue with your testimony tomorrow at 2 p.m. That's when we're gonna start. The rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to are attorneys to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense, and of course, your attorney. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so before I have you leave here today, I think the defense and the state are going to want to clarify certain things with you to see if there's any outstanding discovery that is missing or that anyone doesn't have that's out there, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then Mr. Wilson,
Yes, ma'am.
when the court invokes the rule, that means that the rule is invoked. The purpose of invoking the rule is so that persons will not be discussing testimony that they've heard with potential witnesses or other witnesses. Because what the court wants and what jurors want, if this were a jury trial, is they want to hear things as the person who's testifying remembers it, not when they're taking their memory and combining it with something somebody else said. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So you are not allowed to speak to anyone. And when I say anyone, I mean any witness or potential witness about what has been said on the witness stand. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And that means that you can't backdoor it. Here's an example of backdooring it. If a witness were to come in and say that it rained on Thursday, and then you call somebody and say, hey, did it rain on Thursday on that day? And they say no. And then you say, well, you need to come down and say it didn't rain on Thursday. That's a backdoor violation of the rule that I'm giving. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And if that happens, what ends up happening is one or two things. And the most important thing that can happen is that witness could not be allowed to testify. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want us to have a trial that's fair to both sides. So it needs to be fair to you and fair to the state as well. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
All right. So we're going to start back up tomorrow at 2 p.m. State your witnesses will be able to be here at 2.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And then Mr. Cox, if you have witnesses, make sure they're here at 2 as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.